Okay, so let's get started with some Python. What I'm going to do first is I'm actually just going to give this a title. So here where it says untitled, I'm just going to call this print and input. Click rename, and then whenever I do control save, you can say it just says last checkpoint a few seconds ago auto saved, and that basically means that it's saving my script and it's saving it as a IPYNB file. You can also save it as a .py file, which is the extension for Python. But I'm just going to make sure that I save these, so then when I come back to it at a later date, I can find which script this is. So we're going to do print and input. So the first one will help us get introduced to basically the Python syntax. So you just type in print, then in brackets, and then you can have either single or double quotations. I tend to often go for singles. Right, hi there. If I do shift enter to run the cell, that's going to output. If I want to write another line, my name is John. Great. And so if you're running it through the command line, for example, then that's just going to appear down here. So the next thing we're going to look at is input. So input is quite cool. This is basically where you get the user's input now. So I'm going to say, how are you? And then leave some blank space. When I run this, it's basically going to offer a little box, which is where I can write stuff in. Fine, thanks. And then the output is just fine, thanks. What's awesome is you might remember from our JavaScript about variables. So we can actually save this in a variable. So I'm going to call my variable, for example, I'm going to call it question. You can call variables whatever you'd like, so long as the first character is a letter. Don't use numbers or special characters. And you can't use white space as well. So we couldn't write question1 with a white space. It would have to have an underscore or something like that. So I'll just call this question1, then input how are you. Okay. So now that's been stored. This variable has been stored. So now I could do print and print the variable. And what's cool here is because this variable name has been stored, if I press tab on my keyboard, it's going to auto-complete it. Okay, so those are the first two things. You can print things out, and then you can actually get input from the user by using this input, then brackets, and then quotation marks. So the three things we went over is how you can print text. You can also print numbers. As we already went over, if we go for the variable here, we can also print out variables. So that works as well. The second thing we went over was input, and this is how we can basically get input from the user themselves. We can store that in a variable. So when we run this, we can put whatever we want in, but that's the user input now. So that's going to be very useful when we're playing around with the if-else statements and other things that we've been over in JavaScript before. So the three things we've been over is print, input, and then using variables to print out the input. So have a play with those three things yourself, and then we'll go on in the next lecture.